Hello and welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras, and coming up in today's newscast, over 2,000 people have now been diagnosed with the coronavirus in the state of Israel. The Israeli government begins to implement a strict new round of regulations across the country, and will reveal how some of Israel's most musically talented people are using their time in home quarantine to make magic. 2,170 people have now been diagnosed with the coronavirus in the state of Israel, with nearly 40 now in serious condition. And as the number of cases rise, 2 more Israelis have now passed away from the coronavirus in the state, bringing the Israeli death toll up to 5. One of the victims has been identified as a 76-year-old man who is believed to have had serious health issues before his infection. The second victim is reportedly an 87-year-old man who was hospitalized late Tuesday. The Israeli High Court has just lifted an injunction now that has been stopping Israel's Shin Bet security services from tracking Israelis to keep tabs on the coronavirus outbreak so that police can then enforce quarantine orders. Now, the Shin Bet will be able to digitally track the movements of Israelis to see who they are coming into contact with, and the tracking uses cell phone location data to alert and order people into quarantine who are within 2 meters of someone with coronavirus for 10 minutes or more within the past 2 weeks. Rights groups have come out against the government, however, for allowing public surveillance by the Shin Bet without a Knesset committee in place to monitor the use of data. And right now, several European nations, including Germany, Italy, and the UK, are using similar tools to track the movements of virus carriers. Now, as the coronavirus continues to spread across Israel, a new set of restrictions on the public has just been green-lighted by Israeli government overnight. At 5 p.m., they will reportedly go into effect on Wednesday evening tonight, and the full details of the restrictions will be released later today. But for now, we know the following. The strict regulations mean that most Israelis will only be allowed to venture out on short walks within 100 meters of their homes, and they will otherwise have to stay confined to their homes if they don't have something essential to do. People will also be allowed to go to work as long as the guidelines are followed, but employers are required to check the temperatures of all those who arrive at work. Anyone who has a temperature of 38 degrees Celsius or above will be refused entry. All businesses and shops will be shuttered unless they sell food, optical products, hygiene products, electrical appliances, telecommunications, or medical accessories. And essential services will also remain open, including supermarkets, pharmacies, gas stations, and banks. But stores must mark a 2-meter distance between people at checkout lines that's 6 feet, and make sure that there are no more than 4 people waiting on a line at any given time. Restaurants will still be permitted to deliver as well, to deliver food, but self-pickup will be barred, and veterinarians will stay open for emergency procedures as well. Pet food will also be allowed to be delivered. Public transportation will also be drastically reduced, and attending weddings or other religious ceremonies like going to the mikveh will still be allowed as long as arrangements have been made in advance. Only 2 people will be allowed to drive in a car at one time, and they are only allowed to travel to and from an approved place of work or to the grocery stores, the pharmacy, or a medical appointment, etc. Private taxis will still be available, but only 1 passenger will be allowed at the car at a time. And the government has also approved the Israeli public's right to protest as long as all demonstrations, again, include 10 people or less, and a 2-meter distance is maintained between each demonstrator. Now, for some relatively good news, after weeks of steadily falling across the board, Israeli and other world stock markets are finally seeing some growth. But the growth is largely due to the assumption that aid packages will be passed in the very near future. So, how will the market fare going into the future, and how will this affect us as we try to stay financially above water? Joining us with the answers is ILTV contributor and consumer behavior expert, Dr. Vili Abraham. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, where does this growth exactly come from, and how long is it expected to last?
All right, so if we look at the Israeli stock market, it's actually the second day that we're seeing gains. And this comes in the backdrop of the gains in the New York Stock Exchange. We saw the Dow Jones increase by 11.4%, the NASDAQ by 8.1%, and S&P by 9.4%. And this is expected to last for quite a while, I believe, because the economic incentive package has been approved in Congress, and that is going to make a big difference to the economy. I mean, every American adult is going to get $1,200, and every child is going to get $500, and $150 billion are going to be provided to the health system in the form of aids. $360 billion will come in the form of grants to small businesses, and $500 billion to supplement the administration's budget.
Now,
So that's a huge sum, and it's unprecedented, by the way.
wow. All right. Well, so you were just mentioning the United States aid package, but in Israel, are we likely to see a similar aid package passed in the near future? Because I know we've already passed certain aid packages, but is that going to be enough to keep people afloat?
Well, as of now, the Israeli government is probably going to provide $13 million to support the research and development of high-tech companies that are going to develop technology to cope with the coronavirus pandemic. $1,600 will be provided to small businesses, and 5 billion shekels to help boost the economy. However, according to some estimates, we might need as much as 15 billion shekels in order to keep the economy going.
So this growth that we've seen in the stock market, are we expecting it to go down in the near future again? How volatile is the market, I guess, is the question.
Well, the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange is really consistent with what is happening in New York. So as long as investors are optimistic in the United States, the stock market will be very positive here as well, because if there's optimism in New York, then it means that we, Israel, who export and import products from the United States, should be at least calm in that perspective. Because if the economy will be in great shape, or will return to be in good shape in the United States, then we will also benefit from it. The United States is a very important strategic import and export partner to the Israeli economy.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Vili, for joining us. Stay healthy, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you. You too.
All right, now it's been a day since the Knesset finished forming its first few committees, and that means that the time to vote on a new Knesset speaker has officially come. But surprise, rather than holding this vote, which he's been compelled to do by the courts, the current speaker, Yuli Edelstein, has resigned.
למען מדינת ישראל ובכדי לחדש את הרוח הממלכתית בישראל, אני מתפטר בזאת מתפקידי כיושב ראש הכנסת. נתפלל ואף נפעל לימים טובים יותר.
In a shocking turn of events, Likud member and Knesset Speaker Yuli Edelstein is quitting, and the news comes just hours ahead of his court-ordered deadline to vote on his potential replacement. The High Court of Justice was compelling Edelstein to hold Knesset sessions after he had originally suspended Knesset proceedings under the guise of concerns for public health. But Edelstein now explains that the court's undermining of democracy's foundations is just too much, and so he's decided instead to resign, which perhaps, ironically, may postpone the vote for a new speaker until next week. Critics, however, including the Movement for Quality Government, the Blue and White Party, and the Knesset's legal advisors, say there's no reason not to hold the vote today as scheduled, and they're petitioning in order to do so. Now, in the meantime, with respect to forming a coalition, Prime Minister Netanyahu and rival Benny Gantz of the Blue and White Party have both expressed openness to meeting and forming a unity. What this unity government might look like is still unclear, though, as is whether or not the two sides are serious to begin with. And now with Edelstein out of the way, it's possible that Gantz will have a clearer path to ousting Netanyahu from office for good.
Israelis stranded abroad are becoming more and more frantic as air traffic slows down amidst the devastating coronavirus outbreak worldwide. But luckily, the Israeli government is on a mission to help. 10,000. That's the number of estimated Israelis that are believed to be stranded outside of Israel. Many are either unable to find flights home as air traffic comes to a standstill. Others can't afford the now sky-high costs of getting home. But the Foreign Ministry is stepping in to help. Over 330 Israelis have already landed in Israel from northern Italy after an Israel flight sent an emergency flight to Milan, one of the world's hardest-hit regions. Israel is now also planning to dispatch a plane to Colombia to bring back stranded Israeli backpackers. About 150 young Israelis will be picked up by an El Al plane, which is set to depart from Bogota tonight at 10 p.m. Colombia has imposed a compulsory general confinement to stop the spread of the coronavirus. And to help Israelis stuck in the South American nation, the Israeli Foreign Ministry has promised to cover the cost of the difference between the price of their return tickets home and the new cost of the El Al flight. Israel has been working on a national emergency plan as well to bring home Israelis who find themselves stuck abroad with no way else to get home. Last week, the Foreign Ministry organized 4 flights from Lima, Peru, to bring over 1,000 Israelis back to Israel. And the direct El Al flights were the longest ever to be flown by an Israeli airline. airline, and they were free of charge for the backpackers, since the costs were footed by various sponsors. Now, the Foreign Ministry is now working on launching several more so-called rescue missions to countries like Australia, Costa Rica, India, Croatia, Argentina, and Brazil. Speaking of rescue missions, in the height of this coronavirus outbreak, the Magen David Adom paramedics and health ministry workers aren't the only ones burning the candle from both ends. The Israeli Rescuers Without Borders organization is also on the front lines with over 1,000 medics, paramedics, and doctors at their disposal. But here with us now to tell us all about their recent activities is Director of Development from Rescuers Without Borders, Natalie Sopinski. Natalie, thanks for joining us. Now, please tell us, what is the purpose of your organization exactly?
We are emergency medical service. We're like the Red Cross. We are basically the Red Cross in Judea and Samaria.
All right, so, and you know, I understand that the organization is working pretty much nonstop with volunteers who specialize in medicine, first aid, et cetera. How many people are taking part in your activities currently?
Almost 1,000.
Wow. All right, and I mean, are they working with Magen David Adom paramedics to administer any sort of care regarding the coronavirus? Because
yes,
I know.
Yes, they absolutely are. They've been certified through a course on how to take the samples of the test of COVID-19, and they are going to people's homes when they call and when they describe the symptoms, and they're actually administering the tests.
Wow. And so I understand also that, of course, you're an international organization. You're working outside of Israel as well. So where else are you working in the fight against the coronavirus?
So we have 14 permanent missions that have been set up around the world. Some of them Mali, Nepal, Haiti, St. Martin, Burma, just to name a few. And those are permanent. So what happened when there were disasters there, we had a crew sent over and we gave them training and set up a permanent team in those places.
All right, so, you know, how do people maybe support you? Because you're working on donations? What's the structure of the organization?
Yes, completely. Private donations. We are not affiliated with the government at all. Private donations. I'm American. I raise money in the States. We also have people in France, England, and Israel.
Wow. All right. So, you know, how do you work with the coronavirus? Because it requires everyone to follow very strict guidelines. You know, what are some of the guidelines that you have to operate under in order to help out in the way that you are?
Okay, so that's the first thing we had to do. We had to get suited up. So we actually launched a campaign for masks and the full suit because we have to continue to do the regular work. You know, people are still breaking their arms, having babies, and having heart attacks. So just to treat normal people, we can't get infected. So we got to be suited up, masks and suits.
All right. Well, Natalie, you guys are doing incredible work, and I wish you and your organization only the best. Stay healthy. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you. Today, we all should get through this as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Bye.
Moving on, the whole world is looking for efficient coronavirus testing, but what would the fastest and safest way to test actually look like? Well, one Israeli company says that it could be through our voices. The Israeli-based startup Vocalis Health is currently testing a very interesting theory that the coronavirus puts out a unique viral fingerprint, which can be heard and then used for diagnosis. Now, the underlying hypothesis here is that since the coronavirus primarily hits people's respiratory systems, it should be audible in speech and in breath. And to test this theory, Vocalis has partnered with the defense and the health ministries in Israel to collect and analyze breathing samples. Now, the company will use these samples from both the general public and infected individuals by feeding them into a machine learning algorithm, all in hopes that the sound of coronavirus can be isolated. And if it works, Vocalis hopes that initial assessment and patient monitoring can then be vastly improved, reducing the stress on the healthcare system. But best of all, anyone at home can help here. Just go onto the company's website or mobile application and send in a voice sample from home. Initial results of this study should be released within 1 to 2 months. In other news, as the coronavirus pandemic continues, global events are dropping from the lineup one by one. First, it was local concerts and conferences, then it was Eurovision, and now it's the Olympics.
正直なところ、やはり予想以上に早くですね、方向性が定まったなと、まずそういうふうに思いました。しかし方向性は定まりました。これをですね、先が見えないんじゃなくて決まりましたので、これをこの前向きにポジティブに捉えて、気持ちをですねリセットして2021年に向けて さらにですね、しっかりとした準備をしていっていただければと、こう思います。
The 2020 Summer Olympic Games in Tokyo have officially been postponed until the summer of 2021. And while Olympic teams around the world are mostly relieved by the news, some having dropped out already, there's also now a good amount of complications. For one, less than 60% of the qualifying places in the Olympics had been decided. So should qualifiers be reopened from scratch, or only the remaining places? Also, keeping up an Olympic training regimen for another 16 months will be hard enough on its own. But then on top of that, some athletes will have to delay their plans for retirement, and many will have to find new ways just to keep themselves financially afloat. Former minor league baseball player Jeremy Wolf, for example, explains to the Associated Press that the Israeli team is not being paid. Therefore, whether he'll be able to afford staying in baseball for another year and a half remains to be seen. Now, earlier, the Defense Ministry announced that it will be soon working to support those who are most at risk from coronavirus, specifically the elderly and the disabled populations. But a new independent project founded by two young Israeli women is already on that front, bringing badly needed supplies to the people who need them most. And joining us to tell us all about it is Maya Sarah Klein, co-founder of the Door to Door organization. Maya, in less than 10 days, you managed to recruit 3,700 volunteers. How did you go about doing that?
So there's a lot of engagement here in Israel. People really want to help, and that was one of the things that Lior Avisar, my co-partner, and I thought about. It was 10 days ago. We were sitting in my balcony right before the Prime Minister announcement about the corona in Israel, and we started to think about the people that didn't need us before but do need us now. Lior and I knows each other from Taglit Excel. This is the flagship program of Taglit, and they engaged us to think about the innovative and entrepreneurship way of looking at things these days with the corona. How can we help people? And Lior and I started to think, well, there's this elderly people and people with disease background that could have gone out of their houses before, but now they can't. And on the other hand, there's so people, young people, healthy people, that just want to volunteer and help. And how can we match between them? So this is how we funded Door to Door, which is basically help people that don't want to leave their house because they can't and they're afraid, and people that do want to help by location.
So Maya, okay, so how do you go about finding these volunteers and then finding the elderly who need supplies? Like logistically, how do you go about connecting all these people and getting the supplies that you are then delivering?
Okay, great. That's a great question. So first, it's important for me to say that we are not supplying the groceries. People are paying for them. We just help people to bring them to their houses. So the volunteer side, there's a lot of social media, as we all know. There's a lot of WhatsApp group and Facebook. Just from word to mouth, we spread the rumor, as we say. And people really found that interesting because people do want to help, and they offer their friends to help, but then everyone signed up. It is really easy to sign up. You just go into doortodoor.co.il and you get there. Basically, it's the same page. There's one that you can fill up if you want to help, and then there's the other one that you can fill up if you need help or you know someone that needs help, and you can fill it up with his details.
All right, so what's the most exciting response that you've gotten since you've started this program?
Okay, so we get amazing responses every single 30 minutes, which is the most amazing and empowering thing that we could thought about. But one of the most exciting one was with this lady who she has cancer and she can't leave her house. Basically now she's in a hospital, but she can't eat the food that the hospital deliver. So she needed someone that bring her own food to the hospital, and she didn't have anyone by her side to help her with it. So thanks to 3 of our amazing volunteers, we figured it out, and they brought her the food that she wanted, and she really thanks them. And we people are calling us and thank us for the effort that we're making. There's a lot of stories like this.
All right, Maya, these stories are amazing. This organization is incredible. Thank you so much for starting it and for doing this incredible work. I encourage everybody at home who's watching this to try and support Dol to Dol or see how you can help. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
All right, now lots of musically talented Israelis are using their gifts to create songs to help get us through this coronavirus crisis. And ILTV's Nittany Manson is here now to show us just how creative they are getting.
Hey, Aaron. Yeah, so as you know, here in Israel, we love dark humor. And right now, one of the most watched songs in Israel is actually called Corona is Here by a young Israeli family who have been stuck in quarantine after a trip to Italy. Take a look at this video.
נתחיל לשחק בו כדי שלא נתבאס בבידוד. פליי, are you ready to go אבל סטופ, אל תתבלבל פה אוקיי, אסור לי לצאת זה אבוד כי קורונה טובה. ממיה, בואי ונצא אפילו לשנייה.
I'm kind of shocked. I'm blown away. Like, that video is super professional. I'm impressed.
Yeah, well, the mother of the family, Shirley, actually has a recording studio in her home that she uses to make and sell video clips. So she knows how to put something together that's catchy, even if her family aren't really professionals.
Well, they look pretty professional to me. You know, I'm certainly entertained. But what's up next?
Okay, so the next people who are just like catching our attention, the Israeli stand-up comedian Eli Galperin has found a way to keep his kids occupied during social distancing. He made a video with them that's clearly in front of some kind of green screen, and it's just to make them feel like they're traveling around the world while they can't. So take a look at this one.
Okay.
כדורגל לא אוהד ברצלונה, אין תיאטרון תשכחו מדסדמונה, אין לאן לברוח כי דרומה וצפונה, יש רק קורונה. תמשיכו לחייך, אל תהיו בדיכאונה, עברנו את פרעה, נעבור גם את הקורונה, השיר הזה נגמר ועוד לא היה פזמונה, בגלל הקורונה.
So that is a very creative way to keep your kids moving in quarantine and engaged. And probably now my favorite remix of the Macarena.
I mean, any mix of Macarena is going to be good.
Obviously.
It's just fun. It looks like a good time. But this next one is also pretty unbelievable. Since we can't go out and see the orchestra live nowadays, students at Tel Aviv's incredible performing arts school came together online to perform one of Mendelssohn's Psalm 42.
Wow.
It's just unbelievable the way that they've used technology to bring this to people's homes. Take a look.
That was beautiful. Now, these kids are apparently part of the Thelma Yellin Choir and Orchestra, right?
Yeah, and they've titled this performance Mendelssohn Under Coronavirus. They even sanitize their hands before performing in the video.
All right, well, this video really goes on to show, how much you actually really can do, especially with technology, even when you're stuck at home. Nittany, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
All right, now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Skies are partly cloudy today in Tel Aviv with a high of 20 degrees Celsius or 67 Fahrenheit. And tomorrow, the temperature should rise to a pleasant 22 Celsius or 73 degrees Fahrenheit. But try to enjoy the nice weather from your balcony or garden and venture outside as little as possible. And now, before we go, let's take a look at what's going viral in Israel. Couldn't have said it any better myself. I guess this is another way to pass the time when you're in quarantine. Wow. All right, but that is it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.59 shekels to the American dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV pages. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you so much for watching.